So let's go to your
Mhm.
question. What to do
Mhm.
when negotiating a salary? Number one, state kind of understand the situation of the company.
Mhm.
Number two, also show your accomplishments. So kind of if that's associated, combined with the, let's say, a yearly review, show your wins, what you've
Mhm.
created, what you contributed to the company, the value that you brought. Hello and welcome to our first episode of the season 2 of the Art and Science of Difficult Conversations. My name is Lucy and I have Chris here with me.
I'm here. We're
So
back.
we are back after a little holiday. It's beginning of August 2024 or anytime other time that you are listening or watching us. Welcome. Now we are going to do things a little bit differently this season. We will be merging the strategy about how to have difficult conversation, what to do, what not to do, with the role play right after. We thought that might be more reasonable and actually useful to you. So you learn the strategy and then hear and see how it actually is implemented. And each of these episodes will also have about a question. So please, if you have any question in your mind, how to have this type of difficult conversations, let us know.
Lucy, are you excited that we're back?
I'm excited we are back. That's and I'm excited. It's a beginning. Beginnings are always exciting. And we are celebrating also the ending of the episode of the season 1. So
Mhm.
that was exciting, putting together all the compilation episodes, our best interviews. That was the one that I recently put together. What about you? Are you excited?
I'm excited for this new format. I'm excited to do the strategy and the role play right away so that we can put it into action so people can see that it actually works and it's not just us randomly talking into the universe.
Yeah, so we are improving slowly but surely. Who knows what season number 3 would bring?
Yeah. Oh, that'd be great. So we'll see. But so today's question actually is something I see a lot, both in Reddit forums, on LinkedIn, everywhere. People keep talking about this is how do I negotiate for a raise? How do I negotiate for a higher rate? Because there's a lot of pitfalls. There's a lot of things that you can do well, and the problem is there's a lot of ways to do it wrong. And I think people it makes the conversation more adversarial if you do it the wrong way. So why don't we start with how do you do it correctly? What's the best ways to negotiate and prepare for a negotiation to get a raise?
There was a thought that came to my mind as you were talking about this, and the difference sometimes people even are afraid to ask for the raise.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
I've seen it in the past when I was working actually in HR in the past some time ago. I saw that the guys, I don't know if that was just the case for the company or could be, I could be wrong, but at least in this company, the guys were asking actually more proactively every year for a raise and they were getting it. And there were some women that had been with the company for years, but they were not asking for the raise
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
their salaries actually were lower. So that also explained the differences between the guys' compensation versus the women.
Yeah.
Sometimes women just are not asking. And when I came actually from Europe to the US, one of the first lessons I was taught by a friend, Lucy, if you don't ask, that means that they assume you're happy with what you have
Mm.
in this
Mm.
culture. So I don't know if that's from your experience. You've been longer here than me.
Yeah. I think I've seen the same research years ago. I saw the same research that there's a trend where men just traditionally are more willing to ask for more money at even at the when they get the job, that opening salary negotiation,
Yes.
they're willing to ask for more. And so I remember there was a big movement years ago for to give women the confidence and the words on how to ask, and even just that, like you said, the mindset of like I need to ask. And
Yes.
I think it was helpful in the big picture, right? Like I think there's still pockets where people don't do it well and they don't feel confident doing it. And truthfully, I don't know. Sometimes we are going to portray it as we should try to be collaborative as possible. And the truth is, sometimes the manager or HR in a company may not be willing to be collaborative. Like they're
Absolutely.
either
Yeah.
purposefully or not on purpose. They're going to be more of a roadblock. So
Yeah.
I think it's important to think about how do you navigate those roadblocks when they come up.
So that we can address in the role play. So let's go to your
Mm-hmm.
question. What to do
Mm-hmm.
when negotiating a salary? So usually when clients come and ask, Lucy, I think I really need a raise. How do I ask for it? We look at usually if it's, a yearly review, if that's the period in the company where they do the raises. So first,
Mm-hmm.
understand the company. How do they give raises? Is that the once in a year? Is that a quarterly review? Anytime can happen. Number one, state kind of understand the situation of the company.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, also show your accomplishments. So kind of if that's associated, combined with the, let's say, a yearly review, show your wins, what you've
Mm-hmm.
created, what you contributed to the company, the value that you brought. Some
Mm-hmm.
clients even create a presentation,
Mm.
a little PowerPoint.
I've
I had
never heard of
clients.
that. I've never heard of that. I love that idea, but I've never heard of it. That's cool.
I've had few clients creating PowerPoints and that got raises. So very clear and simple. Showing basically their accomplishment, what they projects that they participated in, created, changes they made. Also any requests for feedback, how to improve, and then for the future, their goals, how they want to grow with the company, and then naturally the conversation then goes into the future and also the salary conversation
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
after they share their contributions. So I would start with that. You don't need to create a presentation, but if you keep track of all your accomplishments and wins, that can actually help, because what happens a lot of the times, the managers even forget all the accomplishments.
Mm. Yep.
And so
Yeah.
it's your responsibility to actually bring it to that table and to conversation.
And
What's
I
coming
I
up
would
for you?
say,
Mhm.
well, I would say like that noting down your accomplishments is so huge. It's something that managers aren't purposely forgetting everything you've done, right? Like
Yeah,
if a manager oversees just you, yes, of course they're going to remember a lot of the things you've done. If they're overseeing 4, 5, 6, 10 of you,
exactly.
it's a lot harder to keep track of all those things. And so it's not that they're purposely not wanting to
Yep.
remember or care about the things you've done. It's just hard.
Yep.
Um, so one of the things I always tell people, and I've always done, is when you finish a project or you do something really well with somebody else cross functionally, have that person email you quickly,
Nice.
like what did I do well, like what did you appreciate, and that way you have a record of it and just put it in a folder. That way, again, you can reference it at the end of the year
Mm-hmm.
if it's a performance review.
Yep.
And I had a coworker who used to write down every project she worked on and what the result was. I thought that was super smart. Like it was the first time
Oh
I'd seen
yeah.
somebody do that, and I was like, "This is great. I'm gonna start doing that."
That's fantastic. With clients, we even talk about doing their one-on-ones to start with wins. Each one-on-one or,
Mm-hmm.
a monthly, let's say, check-in, start with a win. What went well since last time?
Yep.
What am I working on? What are the challenges? What I need help with? And then, what am I going to work on next? And that way, if they keep track of it, they have all the wins throughout the year. So that
Yep.
will be easier to prepare also for that review, because they don't have to go to their memory or to their emails. They would just have one document already.
Yeah, and I think earlier you said do like focusing on like the what's going on with the company and like are
Mhm.
there is it during the annual performance review.
Yes.
It is also important to think about what's the current environment. Is there a salary freeze? Is there a hiring freeze because of
Yep.
economics?
Yep.
If you're in a tech company and you're doing a bunch of layoffs, it's gonna be hard to justify that you need a
Oh yeah.
raise. Even if you, and we'll talk about that when we talk about the don't do these things, even if you're taking on the work of other people, it's hard to justify that at times, right?
Exactly. Especially in the economic downturns. And right now, at least this year, since last year, the tech industry is going through a lot of changes. Lots of layoffs. I know just one
Mm,
company, one of the
yep.
companies I work with, they laid off about now 20,000 people since last year already
Oof.
worldwide. So, and that's just
Yeah.
one company. And so the market conditions are really changing. And so it's even harder to find jobs.
Yeah.
And a lot of companies actually have freezes, not on
Yeah.
hiring, but they don't give promotions. They have limited budgets because they want to restructure. So the situation is not easy right now for lots of companies.
Absolutely. And that also makes me think you should also be doing a lot of market research. You should
Yes,
be, as part of your preparation, you should be thinking about the company, what the company, the current state of the company is, and what's your market rate. You got to know what the salary you would normally get anywhere is. And so you
ex-
can use Glassdoor, salary.com,
yeah.
PayScale, LinkedIn. I say ask people, ask other people, ask friends. I think managers tend to say don't talk about your salary, and the manager shouldn't talk about your salary with other people.
True. Yeah.
And it's perfectly legal here in the US. It's perfectly legal for you to talk about your salary with other people. And I always encourage everybody to share their salary no matter what. Like, you should be sharing your salary, and it, like, if it's upsetting for the culture, like, then that's a problem. If it's already upset, if it's like upsetting, right, that
Mm,
means it wasn't equitable to begin with. There's a
true.
Instagram account I follow. I think they're on YouTube, but salary transparency. And
Mm,
this woman and her husband, they just go around asking people what do they do, what are their salaries, and like just being
oh,
really
nice.
transparent about what people's salaries are, what their education to get to that point, and how many years of experience they need, and
That,
really just breaking down a lot of those barriers of what do people make.
wow, that sounds like a great resource. Would you put a link into the
Yeah, we'll put
in
that's a good
our show
idea.
notes?
Didn't even think about that.
That's you know, it reminded me of really how important the research is. And even actually in California now, companies are required to also share the salary range. So
Hmm.
so you could even go on LinkedIn or anywhere, as you mentioned, the Glassdoor, and see if I get hired in my area, because the salary could be different in California versus somewhere in Iowa
Right.
for the
Right.
same position, let's say. So look
That's
at what's the salary in your location where you live.
I think that's a really good point. Is and this is I only know this because I did a little bit of salary benchmarking in the past. What goes into your salary is so complicated, and so yes, look at the range of like somebody in California or New York City or Boston, right?
Mhm.
And you also have to account for where you live. Like,
Yeah.
those cities have high cost of living. You
Oh
want to
yeah.
think about the size of the company. You need to think about um, your skill set, how many years of experience you have. A lot of factors
Hmm.
actually go into, like, a salary benchmarking, and it's not it's not entirely a one-to-one comparison when you say somebody in New York City makes $250,000 doing this or $150,000 doing this. So even though I live in a rural town with no stoplights and like 20 people, I deserve 150,000. That's not quite the same.
True, true. And yes, it can take extra effort. And yes, the research will take time and it could be even overwhelming sometimes. Yet it will give you more power during your negotiation.
Exactly. Yeah. And then the other dues, I think, just being aware, just talk about, going back to the company also, is does the company already give merit increases annually or cost of living increases? And I think you should take that into account. If they don't give a cost of living increase and they only give a merit increase, let's say they give it a merit increase of 2%, right? And inflation goes up 5%. Yes, you got a 2% raise, but you're actually getting a 3% pay cut because of inflation and the cost of
Exactly.
living going up.
Yeah.
And so that should go into your calculation of what you think your raise should be.
Yeah. And also you can research what is the cost of living increase for your area,
Mm-hmm.
which will also help you have accurate data for your negotiation.
Absolutely.
There's also one additional thing that comes up for me. Let's say there are freezes, there's a limited budget, the company's not doing well financially. Um, it might be helpful also to think what other ways of compensation you would be willing to accept and happy with accepting. Would that be at least additional
Mm-hmm.
time off?
Mm,
or any other perks. Let's say
yeah.
contribution to a gym membership.
Mm,
Uh,
I love that. One company I worked for actually, they didn't do this all the time. They only sent it like once or twice, but they sent out a total compensation to every employee. And so they sent your salary plus all the benefits and the value of the benefits. And
oh
you got to
yeah,
see like where, like, even though your salary might be, I don't know, like 70 or 50, right?
yeah.
After you add in all those other benefits, it actually gets up to like 100, 120.
Mm.
Because like, number one, health insurance here is just unnecessarily
Oh God.
expensive, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But you have all these other things. And so you're right. You could ask for, maybe they can pay for a degree or a certification or send you somewhere, or you could get extra days off,
Exactly.
right? Those,
Yes.
like,
Yeah.
those other benefits are helpful too.
Yeah. So maybe you cannot get increase in salary that year because for the company it's really difficult. Let's say
Hmm.
that's the answer. But it could be a counter offer. Could you do at least this? And something that would be meaningful to you.
Yeah.
If you value extra time off, maybe that would be helpful.
Mm, yeah,
So also
exactly.
you know that you would still be motivated to work there and do
Right.
your work.
Yeah. Anything else in terms of preparation?
I would recommend put it somewhere into a document on paper or in the Word document to
Yep.
keep
Write
yourself
it down.
organized. Write it down.
What are things you can do in the conversation? Number one, you got to approach it as a collaboration. I think you could go in as like a hard negotiation style, and that's not really going to work, especially, most of the time your manager has no direct control
True.
over like
Yeah.
your salary, right? Like they have
Yeah.
to work with HR to figure out, and their VP, or if you're the VP, like other bosses. Like there's lots of factors there. Your
Yes.
manager may not be the person that's like directly controlling your salary. So work about it, think about it collaboratively, focus the conversation on the growth of the company and how well the company is doing. And that's where what we said about contributions, what you said about
Yeah.
contributions is big, is
Hmm.
how did your contributions concretely add to the growth of the company or the team or achieving
Yes.
goals or things like that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, this is maybe part of the don't, a lot of people focus on fairness or what I've done, and you don't get paid for your values. Unfortunately, regardless of how important our values are to us, we don't get paid for our
True.
values
Yeah.
of fairness. We get paid for the contributions that we get paid for the work that we actually do. Right or wrong, that's just how it works. And so the focus should not be on, I think it's fair, or I deserve this. So, or I want this. It's really more a collaboration, and how did our work get to that, add to the growth of the company or the team or the bottom line, essentially.
Yeah. It reminds me what sometimes we work on with clients is building a business case for your raise, for
Mm,
your promotion.
yep.
Why this is actually good for the company that you get to that promotion.
Yep.
Your value, you're showing how you're contributing. And so looking at from the perspective of the company needs, of the team's needs, rather than just looking at, oh, this is, I need it, so you should give it to me,
Yeah.
versus like really, as you've mentioned, collaborative approach, looking at what does the company need, what's good for the company also.
Right.
How do I fit? How am I important? How do I bring value to that company, to the team?
Hmm. Exactly. Yeah. 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 And so that's, again, that's leading into like what not to do. The first thing is saying, I deserve this, or I think this is fair, or this is unfair if get paid like this, or I want this. Saying those kind of things, we talk about this in typical conversations. You want to create psychological safety. And if you go in guns blazing, you go in demanding stuff, the other person, regardless of whether they're on your side or not, they just immediately feel defensive.
And then it's very difficult to negotiate
Yeah.
in a productive manner.
Yep.
Also, if you come threatening, if I don't get a raise, I'm out of the here.
Ugh. I hear that all the time, and I think, please don't do that. Don't say that. Don't, like, yes, you can think that all you want,
Mm.
and that might be an option to think about afterwards. Like if they
Yes.
can't accommodate it, if they're never going to accommodate it, yeah,
You
maybe it
also
is
are
time to look at somewhere else.
exactly. Like all of us are also responsible to take care of our needs. So if we really need more money, then we need to take care of ourselves and see how we can get
Yeah.
maybe a different job would be then better.
Yeah. But absolutely don't threaten. That's just not a good way to have a good, productive, collaborative
No.
conversation.
Yes.
Anything else you would say don't do?
I would say not to come after any preparation without doing any research, skipping the steps,
Mhm.
not thinking about really how you bring the value, sharing the wins, sharing the contributions, not checking the market rate of your
Mhm.
position, or maybe asking I don't know, in the hallway somewhere without having a proper meeting.
Yeah. Yeah. Just catching them randomly.
Just
That's
like,
not great.
can I just have a quick chat? Anything
Yeah.
else that comes up for you that we are missing?
I haven't seen this as often. I've seen people kind of reference it or joke about it, but don't lie or bluff.
Uh, yeah.
Don't pretend that you have another offer or say like, hey, listen, I got an offer from somewhere else for whatever, 20,000 more, but I'd love to stay here. If you could just do some like half of it, I'd be happy. Don't lie about it. Don't bluff. That's not a good bargaining chip. And again, that's only going to sour the relationship. So
Well,
even if they give it to you, they're just going to be resentful. They're going to always think of you as childish or
mhm.
unreasonable, and so you're just tarnishing your own image in the context of getting that thing you want.
Yeah, so you can have a short-term win, but long term it might hurt you actually.
Right, right. Or they say, all right, well, I'll expect your 2 week 2 week notice then.
Notice.
Bye.
Could be risky too. Yep.
Yeah, I when I left, when I used to work at and when I left there, I was leaving because I really wanted to work somewhere else. It wasn't because I wanted more money, but they came back like before I left. They said, "Hey, we'll give you a raise of this if you can stay. We really want to keep you." And it wasn't until then that I realized, oh, some people do this on purpose, or some companies will try to keep you like because they want to make sure this happens. And fortunately, like I was like, I desperately, or not desperately, I wanted to like leave and I wanted to go do this other thing. But yeah, I can't imagine what would have happened if I was lying about it, hoping that they would do that for me.
Yeah. I just remembered my own experiences in the past. There was one upsetting experience when we started the conversation between the discrepancy, the women and guys pay. I found out the same guy that was doing less work than me. I was getting paid. I was hired for almost half less, basically, of what they were paying him.
Mm.
Since I had
Mm.
access to the financial, I found out, and I was quite upset. Um, I understand the company, reasoning. They wanted to save money.
Mm.
Um, but at the same time, so I had to have my own difficult conversation there and actually asking for a raise.
Mm. And how'd it
Um,
go?
I did get a raise.
Nice.
Um, I did create that, it was after some time that I proven myself and I put together some presentation.
Oh, very
And
good.
I did get the raise, but also there was a little bit of glass ceiling after, so I felt like I there's no other room for me to grow. It was a very
Yeah.
small business,
Mm.
and so that also had me leave at one point because I just want to also do other things.
Yep. That makes
So
sense.
it wasn't about the money. It was actually me doing wanting to go somewhere else,
Oh,
explore.
so and that happens. And so I think if you're going to if your options are either they give me a raise or I need to look for another job, I think that's perfectly fine. Just you just don't need to say that to them.
Yeah, to also watch our energy when we and tone of voice when we are talking in that.
Right. Difficult conversations.
Yep, part of the preparing for that conversation.
Difficult conversations.
Yes.
So I wonder if it'd be helpful for us to role play it, just to demonstrate it, see what it
Yeah.
looks like.
Alrighty. Let's give it a shot.
So for the listeners or the viewers, if you're watching, Lucy, you're my boss. Let's say you're the director of a division, whatever we're in. I'm a manager leading a team of like 4 or 5 people,
Yeah.
and let's do. So what we're gonna do is instead of role playing what not to do, we're just gonna role play what to do. And we'll do it 2 ways. The first way we'll do it where Lucy's on my side, wants to be collaborative, and just see how we can even phrase the conversation. Then we'll do it again where she's pushing back, and there's lots of other headwinds or barriers that are in the way. We can figure out how to overcome those things. Hey, Chris here. I really appreciate you listening to this podcast. And if you are listening to this podcast because you're looking to get better at these difficult conversations, well, if you really want to de escalate difficult behaviors and you want to be assertive without being aggressive and being true to yourself, I have a self paced course that can really help you, because I know it's difficult being assertive in lots of different situations. If you're at work and you have to give feedback, if you have to deliver bad news to an employee, or deliver bad news to somebody that you care about in your personal life, or you're struggling to deal with defensive or sensitive people who are pushing your buttons and you don't know how to push back. It doesn't have to be that way. There is a world where you can handle these tough emotions with confidence. You can speak honestly and kindly while you're still being assertive. And you have the ability to manage emotional outbursts and stubbornness calmly, because these are things that I've had to overcome and learn. And so this self-paced course goes through all of those things. I've created this trust framework that helps you think through how to prepare for and how to facilitate hard conversations. And you hear a lot of it actually in this podcast as I talk about how to handle difficult conversations in lots of different scenarios. Currently, the course is closed for enrollment. There's a waiting list. If you are interested in learning more, enrollment will open up at the end of August and the beginning of September. So please go to the website. I'll link it down below, and you can learn more about it and join the waiting list if you want to hear more about it. But I'd love to see you there. Hey, Lucy, thanks for meeting today.
Of course, you're welcome.
So I wanted to, if it's okay, I just wanted to talk about the possibility of talking about getting a raise here.
Yeah, you hinted that before, so yes, let's have that conversation. I know you have a small children family. I understand the situation. How
Yeah.
so?
And
Mhm.
I like working here. I love the team you've built. I love the environment, the culture, and I know that the company's been doing really well. I know that we've grown by a lot. We went through that merger last year, and it seemed to go, at least it wasn't affecting me directly, but I know that it was stressful for a lot of people. And you were involved in it, and I know that it went well from what you tell me. um, and I think it's impressive because we still were able to build our team out. We were able to function well. We were able to continue to meet our revenue goals for the year, and it kind of exceed them over the past year, right? And
That's
so
true. Yeah.
I'd love to just talk about whether there's a possibility of getting a raise.
We are going to be having the conversations with the CEO of the company and of course the finance department. So we'll take into consideration, of course, you and the value that you're bringing to the company. We do appreciate you. You've been exceeding with your team the goals, so definitely there will be a discussion about it for sure.
Yeah.
Probably by the end of next month, we will have some information for you.
Okay. I appreciate that. And I wonder, are you also, are there room for talking about the salaries of my team? Because they've been going above and beyond. They've been carrying, a huge workload of like these different projects that we've been kind of overseeing. They've increased their capacity. So we've been, I think from what I understand, I think we're the most tenured team now in the organization. We haven't had a turnover. We've been growing. So I wonder if there's room for them to also think about their increasing their salary as well.
It's a great question, and it shows your leadership. Thank you, as being a caring leader that's not just advocating for your needs, but also for your team's needs. I appreciate that. Thank you. Is there anybody specific that you would recommend? Because you work with them um, closer. So, would those be? I believe you have 4 people on the team currently. You've grown from the three. Let's have a separate meeting about those. But yes, and go through the numbers. I have a specific budget, so let's see. Definitely, we can. Your team is a high performing team, and you guys were hitting the targets, and there are no issues in a way with you guys. You're all you lead your team very well. So let's see what we can do.
I appreciate that. I know you're still in the middle of conversations. Do you have a sense of kind of what that increase might look like?
I cannot speak to it at the moment because I still need more data from also the finance department.
Okay.
But since our company was doing really well last year, I think I'm pretty positive about that. Do you have some numbers that's in mind for your team? Do you feel?
I think they've all done really well. I don't know if I would put one above the other because they've all just
Mm-hmm.
been uh, pulling the lion's share of the work. And
Mm-hmm.
even the new guy Ramon, I think he hit the ground
Oh,
running. He had a
nice.
quick time to productivity. It was incredible. And he picked things up so quick and really contributed and kind of helped advance a lot of the processes that we were doing. So he's newer, so maybe his increase doesn't necessarily have to be as
True.
much as the other folks, but I
Yeah,
still think he deserves something.
makes sense.
But it'd be great for I'm eyeing like a 10% increase, and I'd love for my folks to get at least 7 or 8.
Got it. I don't know if we can do the 10%, but let's see what the CEO and the finance department come
Okay.
back with, and then we'll go from there. But thank
Okay.
you for sharing.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Lucy.
Alrighty. Thank you, Chris.
Great. Yeah. How did that go from your perspective? I know you were super collaborative, so that made it super easy.
Well, it seemed we had a pretty close relationship, and you were, let's say, I put myself into a position that, yes, I saw the results. I saw that your team was really well performing. And so I was also open because I also want to keep you on the team
Mm,
and I want to
mm,
keep you motivated. Um, I think if we had more context, it would be helpful for me.
mm.
But how was it for you?
Um, I think it was good. It's You made the argument for me a little bit so that I didn't have to fight as much. But I think that's the power of preparation is
Hmm.
if it goes if it starts if I start coming across more barriers, then yes, I do want to bring out some of those things I researched, like market rate or
Yes.
the
Yeah.
other things about the company. Those things will be important if I start seeing those barriers and I need to show evidence and business case of why, right? Like I
True.
could have brought up, a percentage of how we've increased revenue or
Yes.
decreased process expenses or
Yeah.
whatever it is,
Yeah.
to demonstrate a tangible value as opposed to it's just fair because we worked hard.
Exactly. Yeah. You reminded me of, quantifiable achievement, accomplishments, not just to put on the resume, but also to bring really to those conversations.
Yeah,
So anything quantifiable that you can
right,
show.
right. So I mean, I think that was also, most people if you're listening to this, you're like, oh, they'll never go that easily. I don't know. I think there are some managers that are really on board with you, and there's some supervisors that like really are rooting for you, and you have super supportive folks leading you, and hold on to them as much as possible because there's also plenty of folks who are gonna fight you every step of the way for some reason.
Absolutely. So it really depends on the company culture. It depends on your relationship with your manager, on the level of trust
Yeah,
that you have. The deeper the trust, the better the relationship, the easier the conversation can be.
right. So let's actually just see what happens when you throw some wrenches in there. Let's see what happens when
Alrighty.
there's some more roadblocks. And
Let's see, no trust or lower
um,
trust.
hey, Lucy, thanks for meeting with me today.
Hey, Chris, of course. How can I help you today?
I know I hinted at this, and I'd love the opportunity to talk about getting a raise.
Yeah, you've mentioned it before. Chris, this is a very difficult conversation for me because,
Mm,
the company's not doing so. The economy is the way it is right now.
hmm
And
Yeah,
so
yeah,
we are really trying to keep everybody here in the company. We want everybody, to stay here, to be secured in their jobs. But it also means we have very limited budget for raises.
yeah,
I wish I had different news for you.
yeah. Well, I'm wondering if you're just open to having this conversation.
We can have the conversation. Unfortunately, I cannot promise you anything.
Yeah, of course. I know there's no guarantees anywhere. Um, I get it. Like I've worked for you for a while, and yeah, I get it. There's the economy, and then the upcoming election. And everybody's uncertain about what's going to happen in this random weird inflation recession. Um, and also I'd be remiss if I didn't point out that my team's grown over the past year. We've really reduced a lot of our inefficiencies and processes. We've reduced expenses by 30%. And as far as I can tell, I think just based on what we've talked about before, we have the longest tenure team on here, so we have some stability. We haven't had any turnover, so we haven't incurred any turnover costs or slowdown in production. So I'm just wondering, because I noticed that we're able to contribute, we're able to still help out the organization and contribute, and we're working well together. So looking at the market rates, and considering that they've taken on a lot of work and we've taken on a lot of work, I just want to make sure that everybody's being compensated fairly, both myself and my team. I want to make sure we're all being compensated fairly, so that we can continue to contribute, considering all the stuff we've done.
We are aligned that I want you to be compensated fairly and appropriately for all the work that you've been doing. And at the same time, my hands are tied.
Yeah.
Um, I will definitely deliver your message. Unfortunately, it's not my decision to make. And
Yeah.
the situation is really tough. And as you know, we've lost one key client account.
Mm. Yeah.
And so it may take time to get back ourselves. But you're right, your team did increase the efficiency. We did save some costs there. Um, and at the same time, this is really tough time for us. What about we reopen the conversation in 6 months, where things might
Yeah.
be different? We might have more information, or next year at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about it. And I'm wondering, in the meantime, if there's any other kind of other ways we can at least um, compensate, maybe not with money, but is there any other things that we can do, in terms of benefits or time off or things like that we can explore?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate that. Since you and your team were doing such an awesome job, I wonder what you think, if we could, what would be a way to celebrate you? Would that be taking you at least out for lunch, or uh, giving you something special for your team? That's I could get an approval for that possibly. Or just as additional time off, I could see if I could negotiate that on your behalf.
I appreciate the offer for lunch, and I'm wondering, and I think they would like that. First of all, I think we all like eating. I like the idea of the extra time off. I think they could really use it. We've had a stressful 2 month stretch here, just kind of
Mm.
finishing this couple of projects. I think it'd be helpful to get some additional time off. Um, and also, I wonder, a couple of members of my team are working towards a certification, and I wonder if you're able to pay for that. And I'm also working towards that same certification. So I'm wondering if the company would be willing to kind of pay for us to do that certification.
That's a good point. There could be some educational credit that you can actually have a certain amount used towards your education. Let me get back to you on that. Let me check on the exact numbers. But that seems like a very good option moving forward.
Okay. And how about does the extra days off seem doable also?
I need to check with other people. Unfortunately, I am not the one making the decision, but definitely I'll bring that as options, and I'll advocate for you. But I need to have the conversations with HR and the CEO and the finance department.
Okay. Great. So then do you want to check in at our next one-to-one next
Yeah,
week? I don't know when you'll
that
have a
sounds
chance to
good.
talk to those folks.
Possibly let's do it in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, I hopefully will have some information for you.
Okay, cool. Let's talk then.
Sounds good. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Lucy.
You're welcome.
All right,
So
that was definitely more stressful, but what do you think? How'd that go?
I think some bosses might be even more difficult. I don't know.
I think
But
they will. Yeah.
what I appreciated about you, I didn't feel like you were pressuring me or getting upset. More of understanding. And at the same time, you also brought up, accomplishments of your team and advocating for your team. And you brought up other alternatives, which was really helpful. Because then I
Yeah.
feel I can still give you something. Let's say I'm the boss that really appreciates the team, that really wants to have great relationships with people and cares about the people to be happy.
Mhm.
So actually, for that type of manager, it's really helpful to have additional options.
Yeah.
So they can also feel they can give you at least something, even then if they cannot give you the money, at least something to do extra.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well done.
I think for me, when my always thought is like when I hear no, I think that's a good thing. I want to hear that no because I want to explore more. Is it you that's against it, or is it you want to do it and you can't do it? And I like to kind of explore more.
Mm,
And so you're willing to a lot of when I bring up that data, when somebody brings up that data, it's partially you're trying to make it so that you and the manager you're talking to are on the same side. You're trying to get them on your side and try to fix the problem together because the problem is low salary or whatever it may
yes.
be. So how do you get them on your side and work together so that you're both attacking this goal?
You know what also came up for me was at one moment I was thinking, I need to balance what I share with you about the company not doing so well because also I don't want to scare you and demotivate you. So then you don't go to the people, oh, the company is not doing well at all. Maybe we should look for another job.
Yeah.
Um, so there's also a fine
Yeah.
line, right? Some companies actually say, no, everything is fine. We're just not, they don't really disclose the information as much. Yet
Yep.
there's a lot of gossip going on anyway, and which may actually make the situation worse
Right.
for the people rather than being transparent a little bit. But there's a fine line also, like how much to share.
I I've always erred on the side of as much information as I'm legally allowed to tell you.
Hmm.
Right. And so
Yes.
unless I've been explicitly told don't tell anybody this, or
Yes.
I know it's,
You
illegal to
signed
tell
some.
somebody.
Yes, exactly. You cannot disclose certain information.
Right. Because I think I think managers get into the a fear of like, well, what if they get upset, or what if my team starts like
Yes,
getting angry
leaving.
about this?
Yep,
That's part of the conversation. That's part of your job as a manager to facilitate
true.
that dialogue and hold your team together. And it's stressful, yeah, because now you're dealing with like big emotions from your team and they might spiral.
Yep.
The problem is they're adults, right?
That
Unless you're working like with teenagers, but if you're
yeah,
overseeing teams of adults, they're adults. They're going to figure out what's going on. They're talking to each other.
true.
Um,
Yes,
even if you say everything's fine, they know what's happening. They can see what's happening. They can sense that things aren't fine. Otherwise, the whole conversation would
absolutely.
be different.
Yeah. And I had, clients wondering how authentic should I be with I want to be authentic. I want to be transparent. These are my values as a leader. And yet the company prevented them from sharing certain information.
Mm-hmm.
Yet the people were asking and they knew something was going on. So sometimes the leader also is put in a very difficult situation also from like depending on the political area in that company and
Yeah.
the culture.
I appreciate also as a manager what you did was you said in 6 months let's revisit this. You didn't say in 6 months we can do the raise. I
Mm,
always I think it's easy for managers to get into that um
oh,
promising things in the
promising
future.
mode. Yeah,
And you'll never know what's going to
no,
happen in the future. You could be,
exactly.
even if you're doing well financially, you things could change. Overall,
Yeah.
I think the only thing I would have changed about what I've done, I think is because I didn't that's my fault. I didn't do well enough is just say a specific number of what I'm looking for.
That's right. Yeah, you
That's the
didn't
only
say
thing
it
I would
because
recommend to people, and that's the only thing I should have done. I just didn't think about the prep in this case. Even the first scenario, I said 10%, but I should have just said I want this.
X amount of increase. And I probably made it also difficult because I said basically no, not right now.
Yeah.
Maybe later, but not right now. But you actually then brought up some specific examples, even though, again, it might be also helpful, even say, X amount of, I don't know, 2000 credit towards education or 5,000 or something like having a specific number. So it's not
Yeah.
like $100.
Right. Right.
What number would make sense?
Right. Well, we can, yeah, and I think that's a further negotiation. If you
Yes,
come back and
after.
the
Exactly.
money that you can give is not what I can get.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to make a fine point for a lot of people who don't work on big level finances is when they see that the company throws a party, right? Um, they throw a party and they're like, instead of throwing this party or instead of giving us pizza, why don't you just give us a raise? That's not how it works in terms of how the money is equal. I think if you've never seen a budget, you don't realize that salaries tend to be like the biggest
The biggest
expense a company
expense.
has.
Yep.
And so if you increase everybody's salary even by 1%, that's a huge now recurring expense. It's not just like a one
Yes.
time,
It's a big
$2,000.
commitment.
That's right. It's a big commitment that you're doing. And so that's why even thinking about like merit increases, like those are a huge deal if you don't have a way to also increase revenue at the same time. And I think that's an important thing for people asking for raises to consider is if you work in a place where you don't have your company stays steady revenue wise and doesn't grow, that's the danger is at some point they can't give you more money.
There'll
Otherwise
be
they
cap.
just will start losing money.
Exactly. Yeah. I like the perspective that you're bringing, basically, in a way, looking at with the empathy also for the other, in this case, the manager or the company, actually, in their financial situation.
Right.
And that's true that it's one of the biggest expenses.
Right. And that's why you should be really considering if you really need to take care of yourself, your family, your bills, whatever, you should really consider, even if you love that place, is this the right choice for you? And that's another hard
Exactly.
decision is,
It
you
is.
might need to go somewhere else because this isn't going to be able to support you and your family and the lifestyle you need to live or you want to live.
Yeah, that's another thing what makes the conversations hard. Sometimes we do want to stay with the company, but the circumstances are sometimes really difficult. The company cannot give uh, more money for the salaries, or they would
Mhm.
go under, or they would need to fire somebody in order to give raise to somebody else
Yeah.
to get the money somewhere.
Yeah. Exactly.
Um, so these are difficult conversations, difficult decisions to be made too.
Right.
Yet also it's important to have those conversations rather than avoiding them and procrastinating,
Hmm.
which is understandable because just thinking about it can give us stress. But at the same time, it's more beneficial actually to go for it and at least know where you're
Exactly.
at, so then you can make the wise decisions for your situation, for your life.
What are your big takeaways from everything we've talked about?
That's a great question. I would say one of them, not just how preparation is important and doing that research part and the analytical part and remembering what are the wins, accomplishment, the results, but also the emotional part. So kudos to you in both of the conversations. You were calm. You were open to hearing the other person's perspective. You were not pushy, and so you brought up the collaborative energy into the conversation, which made it easier for me also to be more relaxed and safe and actually tell you the things that
Mhm.
are there
Yeah.
rather than me defending myself and trying to escape the conversation and close it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I I also did something I didn't mention earlier is I started the conversation by saying I'd love to talk about the opportunity of getting a raise.
Yes,
I think that's powerful,
I love that.
or just in every difficult conversation we ever talk about here is talk about what you want to talk about right away.
Mm-hmm.
Bring it up. Don't try to beat around the bush. Don't like talk about, hey, I'd love to talk to you about my performance. yes, you do want to talk about your performance, but that's not really what you want to talk about. You want to talk about that raise. Let's just say it, put it out there so that they're not guessing what you're talking about.
I love that. Yes, very well done. You went straight for that focus of the conversation. And what I also like, you made it even a little bit softer. So you didn't say, I want to talk about getting a raise. You mentioned about the opportunity of getting a raise, which makes it a little bit more open
Mhm.
and less pushy in a way and less demanding.
Yeah.
So well done.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, not lying, not bluffing. I think it's important, as like everything we talk about in this podcast, is that preparation is so important, as you pointed out, is knowing what's gonna happen. And that preparation isn't the be all end all. It's the foundation that helps you be comfortable in that conversation, so that when you go in, you still got to be calm. You still got to facilitate it correctly. And having that foundation makes you feel prepared, so you can be, uh, so you can improvise if need be. So you can take the change in direction if you need to. You can think about, even if I don't get this, what will I be happy to walk away with? Or is it
True.
either I get this raise or I need to go look for another job? And that might be your alternative, but you don't need to say that. That's just between
Just
you and,
knowing
yeah, just you and
you.
yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Having that kind of where's that line for you.
So
Very
yeah, I'd love
good.
to hear what other people's thoughts are. So
Yeah.
if you're listening, I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. Do you have other tips, strategies that work for asking for renegotiating a raise? Do you have other tips on how to do this better than we did it?
Or any other situations when you have a specifically challenging manager that
Hmm.
maybe is not rooting for you.
Yeah.
And there's some other reason why they don't want to give you the raise
Yeah.
that you would love us to role play on.
Yeah.
So please let us
Exactly.
know.
Yeah.
Collaborate with us.
Yeah. Collaborate with us. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, send us money, do whatever you need to do, but stay engaged. Let us know what you think so that we can make this podcast better for you.
Thank you. I wanted to say send us lottery tickets because you last time mentioned you wanted to win the lottery. So
Yeah. Send us
you can
lottery
send
tickets.
Chris
Yes.
lottery.
I'm happy to get winning lottery tickets all the time. But thanks, everybody. Next week, we'll have
Thanks,
an interview
everybody.
and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
See you next time.